I used to think I was cursed, since every single one of my men fled from me with mortal terror in their eyes. But yesterday, while sorting through my late mother's belongings, I found her secret diary. There, on page 42, written in her elegant calligraphic handwriting, was a chilling note. Today I called his mother and told her that Lydia is an unstable schizophrenic who tried to stab her ex-boyfriend in his sleep. Operation complete. Another candidate weeded out. We are back to being just the two of us. In that exact moment, my entire world, all my 30 years of complexes, failures, and broken hearts, shattered and turned upside down. I finally realized that the monster who had reduced my life to ashes had been sleeping in the very next room, brewing my coffee every single morning. My name is Lydia. I am 30 years old, and until recently, I was absolutely convinced that a defective gene was hard-coded into my DNA, a gene responsible for total, incurable loneliness. You know the type. Women who seem to have it all together on the outside? I run a small but successful design agency, enjoy a steady stream of clients, and have loyal friends with whom I grab coffee downtown once a week. I look decent and take care of myself. Yet, the moment a man appeared on my horizon, an invisible, ruthless countdown timer would begin. A month, 2, 6 months at the absolute maximum. And then came a sudden, inexplicable, bone-chilling end. Welcome to the world of Storytime drama. Here, we uncover the most tangled family secrets, talk about the betrayal of those we trusted more than life itself, and explore how justice always strikes back. Put aside all your worries, get comfortable with a cup of hot tea, and get ready to listen. Our story begins. Men didn't just break up with me, they fled. They blocked my number across every messaging app without a single word of explanation. They hastily changed jobs, moved to different neighborhoods, and sometimes left the state entirely. If we happened to cross paths on the street by accident, they stared at me as if they were looking at a serial killer or a ghost. I spent thousands of dollars on therapists. I sat in the chairs of the city's top specialists, digging into my childhood, trying to figure out if I was projecting hidden aggression, if I was too suffocating in relationships, or if I was smothering my partners with overprotectiveness. You are completely healthy, Lydia, the doctors would say, shaking their heads in confusion. You have a secure attachment style, you are empathetic, you listen well, and your emotional intelligence is high. Perhaps you are just chronically running into the wrong people. The wrong people. 5 times in a row? 6? Statistically, that was impossible. I had begun to believe in the supernatural, in ancestral curses, in the infamous crown of celibacy a sympathetic neighbor had once foretold. But the truth turned out to be far more terrifying than any witchcraft. My curse weighed exactly 11 ounces, featured a hardcover made of violet calfskin leather, smelled of expensive lavender soap, and was kept in the desk drawer of the woman who gave me life. My mother, Constance, passed away 2 months ago. It was a sudden, massive stroke. She died in her sleep, in her bed, inside our massive, gloomy Victorian mansion that stood on the outskirts of town, surrounded by dense, ancient maple trees. My father abandoned her when I was barely 2 years old. I don't remember his face. Constance destroyed every single photograph he was in. She literally used scissors to cut him out of family albums, leaving sinister, empty white holes where his silhouette used to be. Your father was a weak, filthy, vicious man, Lydia, she would often tell me as we sat together in our massive kitchen, illuminated only by the dim light of a wall sconce. He betrayed us. He left us to starve, but I stood strong. I sacrificed my youth, my beauty, my career at a prestigious bank, just to ensure you had everything. Remember this, sweetheart. Men are temporary travelers, wolves in sheep's clothing. They stay for a while, take your youth, your energy, your purity, and then throw you away like a used, worthless rag. Only a mother never betrays. Only I love you unconditionally and truly. And I believed her. I drank that poison from early childhood, viewing it as the highest, purest manifestation of maternal love and protection. Constance built a suffocating, sterile cocoon around me. She personally approved or rejected my clothes, monitored my school grades, and searched my pockets, backpacks, and personal items, allegedly out of concern for my safety. There are so many drugs in this world, so many deviants, so many hidden threats, Lydia. I must be 100% certain that my little girl is entirely safe. When she died, I felt as though a part of my body had been amputated. The massive house instantly turned into a cold vault, filled with her clothes, her scents, her invisible, oppressive presence. For the first 3 weeks, I couldn't even force myself to go up to the second floor where her bedroom was located. I slept downstairs on the living room sofa, wrapped from head to toe in an old blanket, flinching at every creak of the old floorboards. I felt that if I opened her door, she would be standing there, tall, stately, with flawless hair, wearing her strict house robe, casting that piercing gray-eyed gaze that saw right through me, digging out my most hidden thoughts. But the utility bills kept piling up. Land taxes were due, and I had to decide what to do with this massive estate, the maintenance of which far exceeded my income. I needed to go through her documents, her personal items, and numerous boxes of old archives. Last Tuesday, overcoming a slimy, irrational fear, I finally went upstairs and opened the heavy oak door to her bedroom. Everything here was perfect, almost sterile. Constance was a true neat freak. On her vanity, perfume bottles stood strictly by height and brand. Heavy, deep, wine-colored velvet drapes were tightly drawn. My mother had hated bright sunlight her entire life, claiming it ruined the upholstery of expensive furniture, faded the carpets, and strained the eyes. Now I understand that in this perpetual darkness, it was simply much easier for her to hide her true, monstrous life. I walked over to her oak bureau, a massive, antique piece of furniture that I was strictly forbidden to even approach as a child. I remembered how, at 7 years old, out of curiosity, I had accidentally pulled open one of the drawers. For that, Constance locked me in a dark, windowless pantry for 4 hours, calmly and monotonically repeating through the locked door, "You must learn to respect other people's boundaries, Lydia. Otherwise, this world will crush and destroy you. I am teaching you discipline." My fingers touched the cool, varnished wood. I inserted the key into the keyhole of the bottom, deepest drawer. It yielded with a quiet, mournful creak. Inside lay neat stacks of documents, folders with receipts, old tax returns, my birth certificate, her medical records, and at the very bottom, carefully wrapped in a silk scarf, lay that violet notebook. I picked it up. On the cover, in beautiful, embossed gold lettering, was written, "To my beloved daughter Lydia, to be read when I am gone." My heart began to race in a strange, joyful rhythm. At that moment, I felt a powerful wave of tenderness mixed with grief. I foolishly thought it was her spiritual testament, secret words of love that she might have been too shy or unable to say to me in person during her lifetime. Perhaps it contained memories of my first steps, her thoughts on the difficult days of motherhood, or her wise advice for the future, for when I decided to become a mother myself. I sat on the edge of her immaculately made bed, turned on the desk lamp, and opened the first page. My mother's handwriting was calligraphic, with a perfect, calculated slant, the letters even, as if printed on an antique press. No crossouts, no accidental blots or corrections. Everything was clear, structured, and cold. The first page was dated May 14th, 2008, the day I turned 12. I began to read, and with each subsequent line, the fake smile slid off my face and my skin became covered in a cold, sticky sweat. These were not the memoirs of a loving mother. This was a dry, methodical, monstrous war journal, a chronicle of special operations designed to destroy my personality, my will, and my future, which Constance had kept for 18 years with the precision of a seasoned executioner. The very first entry opened my eyes to an event I remembered in vivid detail, but had viewed in an entirely different light my whole life. It was my 12th birthday. May 14th, 2008. Lydia turned 12 today. She is rapidly losing her childhood awkwardness, filling out, and this seriously frightens me. She is beginning to develop those very features that attract arrogant, unworthy, primitive boys. Today, at her modest home celebration, that disgusting, brazen ragamuffin from across the street, Philip, gave her a cheap bracelet made of seashells. Ones he had clearly gathered himself on the dirty city beach and tied together with tasteless twine. Lydia was beaming as if he had presented her with royal diamonds. She spent the entire evening running her fingers over those shells. My daughter is losing her focus. She should be thinking about getting into a prestigious college, about our inner harmony, our comfort, our family, not smiling at penniless neighborhood boys. When Lydia fell asleep, I quietly entered her room, took that hideous bracelet from her nightstand, and flushed it down the trash chute without regret. In the morning, she threw a massive tantrum, searching for it all over the house, looking under sofas. I calmly and softly told her that she must have dropped it on the street due to her perpetual, innate absent-mindedness and lack of attention. She cried for a long time, burying her face in my knees. I patted her head, sighed sympathetically, baked her favorite lemon cookies, and we spent a wonderful, quiet evening together watching an old movie. Philip must not appear on her horizon again. I will handle this matter tomorrow. I sat on the bed, squeezing the notebook so hard my knuckles turned white, and the thick paper of the pages groaned defensively. I remembered that bracelet perfectly. My God, I had searched for it for 3 days straight, tore up my entire shag carpet, looked under every wardrobe, and scraped my knees until they bled. Philip had collected those shells himself when he and his parents went to the wild coast for the weekend. He had carefully drilled a tiny hole in each one, matching them by shape. It was my very first innocent gift from a boy I really liked. And my mother, she simply threw it into the trash and then stood over me, smiling warmly, systematically brainwashing me into believing I was clumsy, incompetent, and unable to protect even a precious item. I turned the page, feeling a heavy lump rise in my throat. Fear and disgust began to choke me because the entries became more regular, harsher, and more detailed. Constance was creating a true doctrine of total control. October 3rd, 2009. Lydia spends too much time at the computer. She is constantly texting some classmates online, giggling, closing the screen when I walk in. Today, while she was in the shower, I went into her room and checked her phone. Some boy named Ethan is writing ambiguous compliments to her, calling her eyes beautiful. Disgusting. I called a specialist and installed a hidden remote access spy program on her computer and phone. Now, every step she takes, every word she types, every photo she sends is duplicated on my tablet. This is not espionage, as foolish average people would call it. This is the protection of my property, the protection of my investments. Lydia is too foolish, naive, and trusting. She does not understand that the people around her are predators. I am her only reliable shield. I must know everything. I froze, remembering my teenage years. So that's why, when I was 13 and 14, my accounts were constantly blocked, passwords were changed, and personal diaries on private websites were suddenly deleted. I thought I was being targeted by unknown hackers, crying from helplessness as I lost my teenage profiles and chats. As it turned out, the primary and only hacker in my life was my own mother. She sat in the next room, drinking her evening mint tea, cold-bloodedly reading my childhood secrets, my first timid teenage confessions, my silly, naive poems about first love, copying down the names of my potential friends. The conflict escalated with every page I read. Constance never remained a passive observer. The moment she noticed the slightest threat to her absolute control, she moved to active, ruthless measures. When I turned 14, a new boy named Raymond joined our class. He was well-read, calm, a highly intelligent guy from a cultured family. We quickly found common ground, going to the city library together, preparing for academic competitions, and debating for hours about books we had read while sitting on a park bench. To me, it was a pure, incredibly innocent teenage friendship that was just beginning to spark into something more. Raymond always walked me to the wrought iron gates of our house, but he never agreed to step inside. It was as if he subconsciously sensed the threat emanating from the dark, massive windows of our mansion. I found the entry in the Violet Diary dated that very November when Raymond suddenly, in a single day, stopped greeting me. November 12, 2010. This little pup Raymond has become far too dangerous for our family. Lydia waits for him after class, a foolish smile on her face, her eyes lighting up whenever she speaks his name. She is beginning to distance herself from me, from our home. Yesterday, she dared to refuse to go to the theater with me to see my favorite play, claiming she had promised to help Raymond with some school history project. This is open rebellion. I must crush it in the bud before her mind is permanently poisoned by outsiders. Today, I cornered this boy around the corner from the school when Lydia was delayed in the art room. I approached him and, in a chilling, businesslike tone, informed him that my ex-husband is a high-ranking and highly vengeful official in the Ministry of Justice. Of course, this is a pure lie, but these teenagers are so easily frightened and stupid. I told him that if he ever came within 100 meters of my daughter again, his parents would suddenly find themselves with an enormous, unpayable tax debt, their business would be shut down, and he himself would be expelled from school with a black mark, blocking his path to any university. The boy turned pale. His lips literally trembled. He couldn't utter a single word, and he just bolted. My plan worked flawlessly. The next day in class, he didn't even look at Lydia, sitting as quiet as a mouse. My daughter came home completely shattered, destroyed, locked herself in her room, and cried quietly into her pillow. I brewed her some chamomile tea, brought it on a tray, sat on her bed, and told her that men at this age are incredibly fickle, selfish, cruel, and deceitful. They can never be trusted with your fragile feelings. They will play and dump you. She wrapped her arms around my waist, sobbed on my chest, and told me that I was her only true friend and support in this scary, cold world. My girl has completely returned to me, control restored. I closed my eyes, and hot, burning tears streamed down my cheeks, dripping onto my late mother's ink. Raymond. I remembered that horrific day in agonizing detail. He walked right past me in the school hallway, as if I were transparent, inanimate glass. When, in utter confusion, I tried to grab the sleeve of his school blazer and ask what had happened, if I had offended him somehow, he forcefully yanked his arm away, recoiled, and looked at me with such a wild, indescribable mix of primal terror and disgust that everything inside me shattered. Back then, I assumed he had found out something shameful about me, that one of my classmates had spread some filthy, disgusting rumor. After that incident, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror properly for 3 months, believing I was some sort of moral monster, someone whose very sight made normal people sick. I withdrew into myself, stopped making friends, and completely walled myself off from my peers. My only conversationalist, my confidant, and my advisor became Constance. She sat with me during long winter evenings, made me read aloud to her, checked my every step and every thought, chanting about how rotten, dangerous, and treacherous the world was outside our wrought iron gates. But the real, sophisticated, professionally planned hell began when I went to college. I thought that by escaping to an educational institution, even though I was forced, under threat of her terrifying tantrums and heart attacks, to return home to sleep strictly every night, I could finally catch a breath of freedom. I was wrong. My leash had simply grown a bit longer, but Constance held it with a death grip. At 19, I met Sebastian. He was studying architecture, 2 years ahead of me. Tall, lean, with perpetually messy dark curls, wearing an invariable corduroy jacket stained with ink. He smelled of ink, strong coffee, cheap cigarettes, and boundless freedom. He was the first man in my life who wasn't intimidated by my obvious psychological quirks and anxieties. When, in the middle of a date, I would suddenly turn pale, check my watch, and say, "Seb, I have to run right now. My mom checks my location via GPS every 2 hours, and if I'm 10 minutes late, she will call an ambulance and the police." He didn't roll his eyes. He didn't call me a crazy mommy's girl. He just gently wrapped his arms around my shoulders, calmed my frantically beating heart, and said, "It's okay, Lids. We can handle anything. Your mom is just very lonely. She's terrified of losing you. In time, we'll show her that I'm not the enemy, that I love you, and she'll calm down. Let's take it step by step." Sebastian himself insisted on coming to our mansion for a formal dinner to meet Constance and dispel her fears. He approached this with maximum responsibility. He bought a massive, gorgeous bouquet of white lilies, which my mother loved so much, and found a rare, expensive collector's edition book on medieval architecture, a topic Constance loved to lecture about. I remembered that evening in all its details, as if it were yesterday. My mother wore her best silk dress in deep emerald green and brought out the family silver. She was charm personified. She smiled softly, cracked jokes, poured wine, and enthusiastically questioned Sebastian about his thesis project, his plans for the future, his parents, and their financial situation. She seemed like the perfect, cultured, loving mother who simply cared about her daughter's future. When Sebastian left, after a warm goodbye, Constance kissed me gently on the forehead and said, "What a charming, deep, well-mannered young man, Lydia. I am so sincerely glad that you have finally met someone worthy. It seems I can rest easy regarding you. You are in safe hands." I spent half the night crying tears of joy in my room, burying my face in my pillow, thinking that my multi-year nightmares were finally over. That my mother had recognized my adulthood, acknowledged my autonomy, and was letting me go into an adult, happy life. If only I had known what an abyss I had opened. My trembling fingers, covered in light sweat, turned the page of the diary dated April 2015. The lines blurred and jumped before my eyes, turning into an absolute nightmare. April 4th, 2015. Sebastian. An extremely dangerous, cunning, and slippery subject. He possesses something that previous candidates completely lacked: endless patience, tact, and a high intellect. He doesn't just casually court Lydia, he slowly, carefully, and psychologically pulls her to his side, dragging her out from under my influence. Tonight at dinner, this pup casually mentioned that after the end of the semester, he and Lydia plan to rent a small studio downtown and move in together. Scoundrel. Non-entity. He wants to leave me alone in this massive, cold, damp, empty trough called a house. He wants to take away my only daughter, my caretaker, my primary life project, the meaning of my existence. If Lydia leaves, I will be left one-on-one with my encroaching old age and illnesses. I didn't give birth to her and raise her for that. I will not allow it. I will destroy this architect so thoroughly that he will curse the very day he dared look in my daughter's direction. While they were flirting and whispering in the living room, I went into the hallway under the pretext of needing clean linen napkins. In the pocket of his corduroy jacket, I found a leather wallet. Quickly, trying not to make noise, I used my phone to photograph his student ID, driver's license, and the business card of his father, Cedric, who turned out to be the owner and CEO of a major construction firm in our region. Excellent. A great, solid leverage point. Big business is always frantically protective of its reputation and clean name before investors. Let the grand game begin. I swallowed hard, feeling the air in my mother's room turn suffocating, like a crypt. The text on the following page was written in a slightly more sprawling hand, the letters crowding each other. Constance was clearly writing this in a state of intense emotional arousal, experiencing the pure, undiluted triumph of a predator. April 18th, 2015. Finale of Operation Sebastian. Everything went off without a hitch. Yesterday, while Lydia was at a mandatory career orientation in the far building, I went to the university archive where Sebastian worked part-time in the evenings. I specifically chose a time right before closing when there were guaranteed to be no other students or staff in the room. I walked in, locked the door tightly behind me with the latch, and put on a grand show worthy of Broadway's finest stages. I dropped to my knees before him, right on the dirty floor, began to sob hysterically, tore at my blouse and loudly, loud enough for the whole hallway to hear, begged him to stop blackmailing my little daughter. I screamed that I knew about his massive secret debts in underground casinos, that he was secretly filming Lydia with a hidden camera in cheap motel rooms, and was now demanding huge sums of money from her, threatening to upload pornography to the web and send it to her professors. This brat was completely flabbergasted. His face turned an earthy, dead color. He began to shake, trying to stutter out some words, to justify himself, to lift me off my knees. but I began to professionally smash the clay pottery on his desk, knocked over a shelf of folders, and screamed even louder, simulating a heart attack. Naturally, university security, the dean of the faculty, and the rector, who happened to be in the hallway, came running to the wild noise. I had no direct evidence, of course, but the seed of doubt was successfully planted. The university leadership is terrified of such scandals. But that was merely a distracting maneuver. This morning, I made my main move. I called his father Cedric directly on his personal office number. I completely altered my voice, making it broken, tragic, hoarse with tears. I introduced myself as the mother of a young, ruined girl, claiming she was trapped in his web. I informed him in a frosty tone that his son Sebastian was engaging in manipulation, severe blackmail, and destroying an innocent life for his dark habits. His father is a man who is frantically shaking over his reputation. I harshly added that if Sebastian did not disappear from our city and my family's life within 48 hours, I would hand over a completed, fabricated packet of documents, screenshots of chats, and statements to the central press, television, and the police. Materials I had spent 3 days enthusiastically creating on fake accounts. His father is a cowardly average man, deeply mired in business, who is frantically shaking over his millions, contracts, and company reputation. He subjected his son to a hell the likes of which the boy had never seen in his entire life. The boy has been ground to dust. I forcefully dropped the violet notebook from my hands. It fell to the bedroom carpet with a dull thud, opening precisely to page 42. My ears popped, filled with a terrifying, monotonous, deafening roar through which fragments of memories from 6 years ago came bursting out. I remembered. Oh God, I remembered that horrific, rainy evening 6 years ago. Sebastian called me from an unfamiliar, strange number. His voice wasn't just shaking, it literally rasped, breaking into a wild, unnatural screech. He screamed into the receiver so hard that the phone's membrane vibrated and rattled. "Your mother is a crazy, unhinged, absolute psychopath!" he screamed, choking on tears of helpless rage. "She destroyed my life, Lydia! My own father beat me, he stripped me of all funding, blocked all my cards, and forced me under threat of disownment to withdraw my papers from the university and leave the state. I was almost thrown in prison, Lydia. Your monster of a mother officially accused me of pedophilia, pornography, and blackmail before the university leadership. Security threw me out of the building like a dog. Stay away from me, do you hear me? Don't come near me. You are both cursed, insane schizophrenics. You belong in a locked clinic. If you ever write to me again, or if your crazy mother appears on my horizon, I will kill her with my own hands, I swear to you." Back then, immediately after that wild call, I crawled to the kitchen to Constance in complete shock. I literally crawled across the parquet on my knees, choking from a terrible hysteria. I had a severe panic attack. A spasm gripped my lungs, and I couldn't take a single breath. I screamed, tearing my vocal cords, saying that Sebastian had lost his mind, that he was accusing her of some monstrous sins, that the world was collapsing. And what did my mother do? My loving, caring mother. She immediately dropped to the floor beside me, right into the dirt. She forcefully pressed my thrashing head to her chest, gently stroked my messy hair, cradled me like a small, foolish child, and whispered in her gentle, warm, lavender voice, "Shh, my little one, my poor girl, quiet, quiet, it's okay, Mommy's here." My naive, trusting Lydia. You see now what a terrifying, vicious monster I saved you from just in time. He was simply looking for a convenient excuse to dump you and not feel guilty. That scoundrel surely found someone else on the side, a rich girl from his faculty, and to justify his baseness, this villain decided to accuse your elderly, defenseless mother of all mortal sins. How low! How despicable! What a great blessing that God kept this freak away from our house before he could cause you real, irreparable physical harm. I sobbed on her silk shoulder, choking with tears of gratitude. I felt a boundless, sacred gratitude that in this darkest, blackest moment of my life, my mother was beside me, holding me and protecting me from this cruel, insane world that broke my heart time and time again. And at that very moment, Constance was stroking my head and most likely glancing at her watch, mentally calculating how many pages in the violet notebook her new detailed report on the completed surgical operation would occupy. But the most terrifying, most sophisticated, and fatal blow awaited me further down. Page 42. This was written just 2 years ago. The story of Daniel, the only man with whom I was one step away from the altar. Daniel was the man with whom, for the first time in my 30 years, I decided to build a real, complete family independent of my mother. I was 28, he was 32. He worked as a lead design engineer at a major international technology company. Calm, quiet, highly reliable, with warm, strong hands and incredibly kind, understanding eyes. He didn't try to storm my mother's fortress, didn't curry favor with her, and didn't engage in conflicts. He simply, day after day, through actions, proved to me that the outside world was not dangerous. He taught me not to flinch with my whole body at every phone call from Constance. He gave me the incomparable feeling that I was an adult, free, independent woman who possessed a full, sacred right to her own personal happiness. After a year of perfect relations, Daniel dropped to one knee in the middle of a snowy city park, extended a velvet box with a ring, and asked me to be his wife. It was the happiest, brightest day of my life. It felt as though I had finally defeated my fictional curse. I came home, beaming with delight, and extended my hand to my mother, showing the elegant diamond on my finger. I still remember how Constance's face instantly transformed into a gray, lifeless, deathly mask. Her eyes narrowed to slits, her lips turning into a thin, pale line. But a moment later, through an incredible effort of will, she forced a fake smile, stiffly hugged me, and said quietly, with a strain, "The main thing is that you are happy, Lydia. My own happiness is long behind me. I will live out my remaining days in loneliness, as long as it is well with you." There was so much hidden, suffocating, toxic bitterness and guilt in her voice that immediately, in the midst of my triumph, I felt unbearably ashamed of my pure joy. And 2 weeks later, Daniel simply vanished. No fights, without the slightest preliminary signs or cooling off. He simply sent a short, chilling text message in the middle of the workday. "Lydia, I'm sorry. I can't marry you. I am leaving. This is strictly on me. You are not to blame for anything. Please, I beg you, do not look for me, do not call, and do not try to make contact. It will be better for both of us." After that, his number was permanently blocked. His profiles across all social networks were completely deleted. When I rushed to his rented apartment in a panic, the sleepy concierge flatly stated that in the middle of the night, Daniel had hastily packed all his things into suitcases, terminated the lease agreement, paid the penalty, and left in a taxi in an unknown direction. I nearly ended my life in those days. I lay in my room for a week with tightly drawn curtains, refusing food, water, and communication. My body simply shut down from the pain. I fell into semi-delirious oblivion, hoping not to wake up. And throughout those black days, Constance was right there by my side without leaving. She sat by my bed like a guardian angel, changed the damp, cool compresses on my hot forehead, moistened my cracked, dry lips with water from a silver spoon, and sang softly, soothingly into my ear. "It's okay, my good girl. It's okay. Men simply cannot handle the weight of real responsibility. They panic when they realize that marriage is heavy, daily work. Your Daniel turned out to be an ordinary, cowardly weakling, just like all of them, just like your father. You are too good, too pure, too elevated for this filthy, lustful world. It's okay, sweetheart. We will get through this. We will heal. We have always been just the two of us, and we don't need anyone else. We are one." I picked up the violet notebook from page 42 and locked my eyes onto the lines written in her flawless handwriting. The date, September 14th, 2024. September 14th, 2024. Lydia brought a ring into the house today from that primitive, limited engineer Daniel. Garbage! An egoistic, ungrateful, blind, foolish piece of garbage. She seriously intends to leave me here alone, in this massive, cold, damp house, just to wash socks and cook stews for some stranger. Does she naively think he will love her the way I love her? He'll dump her in a year. She will forget about me in a month, leave me to rot here in loneliness, to die on this bed. I didn't endure the pangs of childbirth, didn't give her 30 years of my best youth and beauty, just for some stray beast to take her away from me. Lydia belongs to me. She is my daughter, my personal project, my absolute property. Daniel must be liquidated in the shortest time frame possible. I began to actively study his weak points. From Lydia's correspondence, which I read daily and enthusiastically through a hidden duplicate of her messenger on my tablet, I learned that Daniel's mother is a deeply religious, fanatical, superstitious, and highly anxious woman who completely controls her son's every step despite his 32 years. Perfect. A weak, soft link successfully located. Today, I bought a burner SIM card at the market, drove to the other side of the city so the phone wouldn't be tracked by towers, and dialed his mother's number. I completely changed my voice, making it dry, professional, emotionless, slightly metallic. I introduced myself as a senior social worker and curator of a regional locked psychoneurotic dispensary. In a cold tone, I informed that old religious fool that Lydia had been on our strict psychiatric registry for 5 years with a severe, incurable, sluggish form of schizophrenia. I said that she has regular nightly outbursts of unmotivated, animalistic aggression, is prone to arson, violence, and inflicting injury, and that her elderly mother, meaning me, intentionally hides this fact from society and is trying to marry her off quickly to shift the burden and responsibility onto the shoulders of some unfortunate, unsuspecting fool. For an extra, killer effect, I added that at 19, in a fit of madness, Lydia had already tried to poison her previous partner Sebastian with arsenic, causing him to flee the city under federal police protection. Daniel's mother let out a hysterical, supersonic scream right into the receiver, beginning to pray. She screamed that she would save her only beloved son from this spawn of hell and witch. To definitively finish the situation and leave them not a single chance for a conversation, the next day I cornered Daniel himself in the underground parking lot near his office. I approached him from the darkness, portraying deep, mortal, biblical grief. I fell onto the hood of his car, weeping, tearing my hair and whispering, "Daniel, leave, I beg you, save yourself. Lydia somehow found out that you want to move her to another apartment after the wedding. She began a terrifying, bloody psychosis. She is locked at home right now. She smashed all the mirrors, screams that she will kill you and your mother. She is walking through the rooms with a kitchen knife looking for your address. I called a special squad of orderly workers, but I beg you as a mother, vanish, leave the state, don't break your life. She is incurable. She will destroy you and all your kin." This strong man turned pale, as if hell itself had opened up before him. He believed my every word, every tear. His pious, crazy mother, who gave him a hysterical scene at home, and my flawless acting job did the trick. 3 days later, he cravenly fled, changing company branches, not even daring to explain things to Lydia in person, face to face. Lydia is weeping in her room right now, refusing food, wasting away before my eyes. My maternal heart breaks with pity when I see her suffering, but this was a necessary, targeted, saving surgical operation. Soon, this manufactured pain will subside, the wound will completely heal, and my foolish girl will realize again that no one on this earth is closer, more devoted, and more reliable than me. Another candidate successfully weeded out. We are back to being just the two of us. Forever. I read to the very end. Constance's violet diary cut off just 3 days before her sudden, untimely death. The last entry on page 46 was short, sprawling, and horrifying in its mundanity. Lydia cooked me an amazing baked potato today, according to a new French recipe. She is such a caring, gentle, submissive girl. My long, difficult labors did not go to waste. She has completely adapted to a lonely life with me and no longer looks around at all. My old age is entirely secure. She will remain in this house forever." But Constance was brutally mistaken. She didn't remain with me. Death took her suddenly, tearing up that monstrous contract of sole ownership over my soul. I sat on the floor of her bedroom amidst scattered things. Around me lay torn-out pages from her diary, which I had frantically, in some mad impulse, ripped from the binding, unable to stop. Inside me, it felt as though a massive vacuum bomb had detonated. All the air in my lungs vanished in an instant. My entire life, 30 years of my terrible complexes, my nightly tears, my teenage depressions, my unshakable certainty that I was a broken, flawed, defective woman whom it was physically impossible to love, all of it was a fake. A stage set. A stage set professionally constructed by a crazy, selfish, narcissistic woman who sat in the next room checking my locations. The men I had loved with all my heart were not traitors. They weren't scoundrels or cowards. They were normal, loving, caring people who were simply saving their lives, their careers, and the lives of their elderly parents from an invisible, venomous spider stalking them from the shadows. And I lived in the absolute certainty that I was a monster. I stood up from the floor. I was shaking as if I were standing naked on bare ice in a fierce northern frost. My teeth chattered against each other with a dry, clicking sound. My hands were flailing, and the phone barely stayed in my palms. But in my head, instead of panic, a wild, furious, blinding, icy clarity flashed. I realized that if I didn't find out the whole truth right now, if I didn't look my past in the eye, I would lose my mind right here among these wine drapes. I grabbed my phone. Finding Daniel's contact info was the easiest. His old phone number remained in my archival cloud backups, even though my main number had been blocked by him across all networks. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of ice water, but couldn't take a single sip. My hand was shaking too violently. I took my old work mobile phone, from which I had never called him in my life, dialed his number, and pressed call. Every ring in the receiver echoed in my temples like a blow from a heavy sledgehammer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The phone screen felt like a hot coal to me. "Yes, hello, I'm listening." His familiar, deep, slightly tired, incredibly dear voice finally echoed in the receiver. My breath instantly caught, a spasm gripping my throat. Tears poured from my eyes with such force that I stopped seeing the kitchen cabinets in front of me. "Daniel," I gasped into the microphone. "Daniel, please, I beg you. I implore you by everything holy. Don't hang up. Don't disconnect. It's Lydia." A dead, ringing, silent void settled in the receiver. I could literally feel on a physical level how, at the other end of the line, hundreds of miles away from me, the man froze in place, his even breathing instantly becoming heavy, labored, and whistling. "Lydia?" After a long pause, his voice instantly turned into an icy, impenetrable shield. "Why are you calling? We clearly agreed on everything 2 years ago. I explicitly asked you never, under any circumstances, to look for me or call again. My mother still flinches at every phone call from an unfamiliar number and drinks handfuls of sedatives after what happened back then." "Daniel, listen to me, I beg you," I screamed, breaking into a hoarse, strained wail, choking on my tears. "My mother died. Do you hear me? Constance died 2 months ago. She's gone. And today I was sorting through her bureau and found her secret diary that she kept for 18 years. I am very sorry, Lydia. Please accept my condolences, but your family life and your mother no longer concern me at all." He tried to press end call. "She lied to you, Daniel!" I screamed at the top of my lungs, my body shaking from sobs. "She made it all up from the first to the last word. She called your mother from a burner SIM card, introduced herself as a social worker from a mental asylum, and lied that I was a dangerous schizophrenic on a registry who burns down houses and tries to poison people. She came to you at the office parking lot, wept, and lied that I was running around the rooms with a knife looking for your address. She kept this diary since I was 12 years old. She destroyed the lives of Sebastian, Raymond, and Philip exactly the same way, using the same schemes. She sabotaged my every relationship, stole my things, and hacked my social networks so that I would never, ever get married and would remain her eternal indoor caretaker in this damn mansion. Daniel, I swear to you by the memory of my father, I swear by my life, I knew nothing. I thought you just stopped loving me. I nearly ended my life back then. I was howling with grief on the floor. Please, tell me you remember this conversation. Tell me she approached you. On the other end of the line, silence fell again. But this time, it was completely different. It was the deafening, thick silence of a deep, paralyzing shock. I heard Daniel breathing heavily, noisily into the receiver, as if he had suddenly run out of oxygen in the room. I could hear something metallic, perhaps keys, drop from his hands. "Oh my God," he finally said quietly, hoarsely, in a completely foreign voice. "Lydia, are you serious right now? You aren't joking with me. This isn't another one of your pranks?" "I can photograph and send you the pages of her diary right now," I sobbed, completely sliding down the kitchen wall onto the cold tiled floor. Every single manipulation of her is detailed here. Every detail. She called it Operation Daniel in her journal. She rejoiced that your religious mother got scared and you hastily packed your suitcases and left in a panic. She sat beside me on the bed, feeding me chamomile tea from a spoon when I was dying of grief, while she herself wrote in the notebook that evening, "Another candidate weeded out. We are back to being just the two of us." She rejoiced in my tears, Daniel. I heard Daniel swear dirtily, terribly, out loud on the other end of the line. In his intonation was the very same primal, unbearable pain and fury that had been choking me all these hours. "Lydia," he gasped, and I clearly understood that he was crying. A strong, grown, always reserved man was weeping uncontrollably into the phone. My mother. She subjected me to a true, unadulterated hell back then. She crawled on her knees before me, begged with tears in her eyes, grabbed my trousers, and screamed that her weak heart wouldn't last a day if I stayed with you. She said she was called by an official curator from a locked clinic, that you had a terrifying, dangerous medical file, that you were a hidden maniac. I didn't want to believe it. I screamed at her. I packed my things. I defended you until I was hoarse, saying you were an angel. But the next day, when I came out of work in the evening into the underground parking lot, your mother approached me from the darkness. She was completely pale, disheveled, shaking with a light tremor. She grabbed the sleeve of my jacket with a death grip and said in a pleading whisper that you had smashed all the mirrors in the house in a fit of rage, cut your arms, and were screaming that you would kill me and my mom the moment I came home. She begged me to save my life and flee the city. She looked so sincere, Lydia. Such a frightened, miserable old mother trying to save both her daughter and a stranger guy. I broke. I just broke under this double pressure. I thought I had been living in rosy illusions and had gotten involved with a deeply sick, mortally dangerous person. I grew terribly afraid for my mom, for myself. I just fled like a coward, changed company branches, and left at night, cutting all ties. God, what a monster she was. Daniel and I spoke for 3 long hours, sitting on floors in different cities. It was the longest, most terrifying, soul-wrenching, and yet most cleansing conversation of my life. We literally reconstructed all the events of 2 years ago, second by second, frame by frame. Every confusing puzzle piece, every oddity in my mother's behavior clicked into its rightful place with a dry, ruthless snap. We wept together, asked each other for forgiveness for being so blind and trusting, for believing this monstrous, masterfully fabricated lie, reassembling the shards of our ruined, trampled past piece by piece. But when the emotional storm subsided and the tears dried, a dry, cold, ringing reality set in. A cup broken to pieces could not be glued back together. During these 2 years of separation, Daniel's life had moved far forward, obeying the laws of time. He lived on the other side of the country, had a new, stable job, other obligations, and a stable, calm relationship with a woman who was not surrounded by dark secrets and insane relatives. He was trying his best to build his future from a clean slate, and my truth, though it cleansed him of his old fear, could not turn back time. The past was definitively dead. My mother, Constance, had stolen our shared future from us, our happily ever after, our unfulfilled wedding, our unborn children. Returning this massive, blooming piece of life back was physically and mentally impossible. Our time had irrevocably passed, leaving only charred lines in a violet journal. The day after that fateful conversation, I went out into the backyard of our old mansion. The day was gray, windy, damp, and cold. The sky was filled with heavy lead. I dragged an old, rusted iron barrel from the dark garage, one that Constance used every autumn to burn fallen maple leaves. I placed the violet leather notebook at the very bottom of the barrel. I looked once more, for the last time in my life, at the even, flawless lines of her calligraphic handwriting on page 42. At that terrifying, bone-chilling, "Another candidate weeded out. We are back to being just the two of us." I struck a match and threw it onto the pages. The fire didn't catch immediately. The thick calfskin resisted the heat for a long time, turning black and smoking. But then, a bright orange flame greedily engulfed the dry paper sheets. The fire consumed 18 years of total control, monstrous manipulations, broken destinies, and sophisticated lies. A thick black smoke mixed with the pungent, sweet, suffocating scent of Constance's lavender perfume rose in high plumes, slowly dissolving into the cold autumn air. Along with this diary, I was burning my entire past. I was burning my 30 years of accumulated certainty in my own flawlessness and inferiority, a belief nurtured by my mother. I watched the fire, and for the first time in my life, breathed deeply, with a full chest, realizing that I was finally releasing myself from a mental prison whose walls were built every day of my life. Right now, I am hastily selling this massive, gloomy Victorian house for next to nothing. I lowered the price to the absolute minimum just to quickly rid myself of these oppressive walls, creaking floorboards, dark corners, and suffocating memories. I am packing the last boxes of things and moving forever to the other side of the country, to a massive metropolis where no one knows me, where there are no ghosts of my miserable childhood and youth. I have found a new, highly qualified therapist who specializes precisely in the rehabilitation of victims of severe, prolonged parental narcissistic abuse. I am learning anew, like a small child, to do things that ordinary people know how to do from early childhood. Simply to trust this world. To trust men, to trust new friends, and not to look for a hidden double catch in every kind word, every gift or smile. Now I know for certain, 100%, my soul was not defective. I was capable of a deep, pure, strong, and devoted love. I am normal. It's just that all this time, my own closest and most cruel executioner stood behind my back. But I want to be absolutely, completely honest with you, without sugarcoating it. This path of rehabilitation will not be easy or fast. Every time a handsome stranger looks at me welcomingly in a cozy city coffee shop, or when a male colleague politely offers to drive me home under an umbrella after a heavy rain, my heart drops into my boots from a wild, primal, sticky fear. In my head, as if on a warped, broken record, the quiet, gentle voice of my late mother suddenly begins to sound, and her neat, calligraphic handwriting from page 42 flashes vividly before my eyes. My main, most terrifying inner demon now is paranoia. I am scared to death that her poisonous, multi-year seeds have taken too deep a root within me. I am frantically afraid that I myself, having subconsciously adopted her terrifying behavioral patterns, will begin to sabotage my new, happy relationships in the future simply because my brain has forgotten how to live in safety, peace, and love over 30 years. I am learning to live with these deep scars on my soul, understanding that long years of stubborn struggle for myself lie ahead. But I will walk this path to the end, on my own, absolutely free. This story is just one of many where justice prevails. If you want more spine-chilling dramas, subscribe to our channel and become part of the Storytime drama community. Leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!